I have a question that I would like to ask you today. Are you done running yet? Are you done running yet? And as I ask you this question, I was reading over Jonah. And when you get a chance, I want you to go read over all the 4 chapters of Jonah. When you get a chance, I'm going to just read a couple of verses in the first chapter. But when I read over those chapters, I want you to think about your life. Because to the ones who don't know Jonah and to the ones that do know Jonah, Jonah was running from an assignment that he was called to do from God, and he ran from it. And I want you to think about your life. Is there something going on in your life that God has called you to do and you're running from it? I want you to think about that now. So as I read over a couple of these verses, I want you to think about your life. We're going to start with verse 1, okay? And it says, the Lord gave this message to Jonah, son of Amittai. Get up and go to the great city of Nineveh. Announce my judgment against it, because I have seen how wicked its people are. Okay? Verse 3. But Jonah got up and he went in the opposite direction. Now, don't that seem like us in our lives? God tells us to go in this direction, but we go in a whole nother other direction. I want you to think about it now. But Jonah got up. He went in the opposite direction to get away from the Lord, thinking that he can run from the Lord. He's an all-knowing God and an all-seeing God. But Jonah thinks he can get away from God. Okay. He went down to the port of Joppa, where he found a ship leaving for Tarshish. He bought a ticket and went aboard, hoping to escape from the Lord by sailing to Tarshish. And I'm going to stop right there, because that just lets you know Jonah had a calling, an assignment that he was called to do. And Jonah said he's going to run and not do it. I want you to think about your life. What assignment have you been called by God to do in your life, and you did the very same thing like Jonah said, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I want you to think about your life. What is it that God has called you to do? Who is it that God has called you to go speak to go talk to go witness to go minister to? What is it that God has called you to do that you just saying, no, God, I just can't do it. I just won't do it. What is it? I want you to think about, what are you running from? What is it in your life that has you running left and right? What is it? What keeps you running from city to city, from state to state, from job to job, from mate to mate? But you won't get in front of that mirror and let God allow you to be great. What is it? What is it that you keep running from in your personal life and your spiritual life? What is the very thing that God is calling you to do, but you are saying, God, I will not do? But something I think that you have to realize, while you're running from God, you're going to have to answer for running to God. See, what you don't do on this earth today, you're going to have to answer for it. See, what I want you to think about is, you're running so much, but what happens when your time on this earth runs out and you never did that assignment? You do know that you're going to have to pay to do that assignment, right? And eventually, you're going to do that assignment, but it just won't be the way that you think that you'll want to do it then. See, when I think about Meredith Baxter, and she wrote this book called The Divine Revelations of Hell, and she wrote about this man in hell, and she wrote about saying how he was called to do an assignment on the earth, but he never did it. So now he's down there in hell doing the very thing that he was called to do. I want you to think about that, because one day that very well be you. You keep running from everything that God has called you to do. You keep on running from everything that God has called you to do, but you don't realize that one day you're going to have to answer that call. You're going to have to do the very thing that God called you to do, whether you do it on this earth or not. You're going to be doing it, but you won't get no joy out of it. And could that very well be you? God has been dealing with somebody right now, telling you to talk to a family member. God been telling you to talk to a couple of your family members, but it's something that you will not do. God is calling somebody right now to talk to a friend. You watching that friend, you watching the very things that your friend do, and you won't say anything to them. Could God very well be talking to you? What about that coworker? What about that person at the grocery store? What about that person at that bank that God keeps bringing you across, that God keeps telling you to minister to, to witness to? But you keep saying, God, that's just something that I cannot do. And you keep running from the assignment that God is calling you to do. God has called somebody to go to another city, another state, another country. God has called somebody to start a girls group, a boys group, a prison group. It's something that God been dealing with you about doing. God has been telling you to go out in the street and talk with the homeless, give away gifts to the homeless. It's things that God been dealing with you, telling you to do. But you keep saying, God, I'm running from you. I will not do it. Could that very well be you? You know what God been dealing with you with. When is the time for you to start running and get serious about your Father's business? When is the time to start running? Because you don't know when your eyes going to close. And that's the only dangerous thing about it. See, you can keep putting it off all day and all day saying, I'm going to do it eventually. I'm going to do it eventually. I'm going to do it eventually. But what happens when your eyes close and you standing before judgment for God? What happens then? You keep putting it off. And that's what some of us keep doing. I'm just not ready to do it now. I'm not ready to do it now. And to tell the truth, a lot of us don't even know what we call to do because we so lazy. And just like I was guilty of, a lot of us, we got a lot of callers that we call doing. We too lazy to even know our callers. We too lazy to know the gifts that God got inside of us, because they very well be you, because I know it was me. And listen, you can't use your laziness as an excuse when you stand before God. You can't use your laziness, because that was just like me. I didn't know gifts and everything that God had put inside me until I stopped being lazy. And a lot of us, God got some awesome things inside of you. God got some great things that he want to do with you, but you don't even know because you're lazy. You're lazy. You don't even know what it is. And please understand this. You're going to have to pay for it just because you lazy. See, some of us know. You got some people who already know they got a calling on their life and they run. They already know it. But then to us lazy ones who we just lazy and we don't know, you think that's going to give you an excuse when you stand before God? Oh, baby, you don't get no pass. You don't get no pass. Because see, just like I was guilty of, I could tell you everything that the men wanted from me. I could tell you everything about those sports teams. So you think that God was going to let me slide? Now, I knew everything that this man wanted, and that's just somebody else is just like me. You know everything that man want. You got a man who he know everything that that woman want, but he don't know nothing that God want, and we going to have to pay for that stuff. It don't matter. You can be lazy when it comes from the things of God all you want to. And you can't stand before God and say, but God, I didn't know. You might as well stand before God and say, God, I didn't want to know. That's the only thing that you need to stand before God and say, God, I did not want to know, because we show God every day. We don't have to tell God nothing. We show God every day with our actions. We don't care about his kingdom, and we don't want no part of his kingdom, and we don't want to live for his kingdom. And we show God, and I was guilty of doing that too. But until I stopped being lazy and I had to start seeking God so I could know God and know my calling and know my gifts that I had from God. And somebody, we need to stop being lazy. And to the ones who already know what God got in you, it's time for you to start living it out. It's time for you to start doing those assignments. Put those gifts to work that God has called for you to do. You don't want time to run out. That's for all of us. You don't want time to run out. And you didn't do the things that you was called to do. And to my women, I want you to hear me loud and clear. To my women, listen, you can't stand before God on that day and say, God, what a man told you not to do. You cannot stand before God and say, but God, a man told me I couldn't do this. A man told me I couldn't do that. You better know what it is that a holy God told you to do. That's all you need to be worried about. Don't worry about what man say. What about what the Son of Man say? How about that? You can't do that. You can't stand before God and say, a man told me I could not do this, but then God gonna say, but I told you you could do this. See, that's the thing about it. God is going to say, but I told you what you could do, and you still chose not to do. We can't be using these excuses. It's time for us to get serious about our Father's business. It's time for us to start getting serious about our Father's business, because a man cannot tell me what I cannot do when I know what God sent me to do, and somebody else better start getting serious about it. A man cannot ever tell me what I cannot do when I know what God sent me to do, and it's just simple as that. We got to start running. We got to stop running. Got to stop running. And you got to buckle down and do what it is that God called you to do, because you're going to have to answer to it one day. One day, if you don't get it right on this temporary world, you're going to have to answer for it in the eternal world, the very things that God called you to do. And you know those things that God got in you, and you know those things that God has been calling you to do. So right now on today, what are you going to do? Right now, I ask the question, what are you going to do? It's time out for running. It's time to start getting serious right now about our Father's business. It's time to stop running, because within you running, your time could run out, because you don't know the next second, minute, or hour that you got left on this earth. Don't let your age fool you. Don't let your age fool you to think, I got 20, I got 30, I got 40 more years on this earth. Don't let your age fool you. It's time for you to stop running and start doing the calling that God got on your life right now. I don't know who this video is for, but I hope it reaches whoever it's supposed to reach, and that you get to a point to say, I'm ready to be about my Father's business. I'm tired of running. Start running to God. Stop running and start running to God. Stop running and start running to God. Run to God to figure out what it is that you're called to do by God before you're being judged by a holy God. So always remember my closing. Self-examination is the best examination, and Jesus Christ is Lord, and he's all we have. Have a great rest of the day.